Hey out there, Akronites, welcome once again to Around Akron with Blue Green, and yes, we have an amazing show ahead of us today. We're going to go check out a display at the Kenmore Historical Society. Then it's over to the Really Goody Studio to learn all about podcasting. Then I'm going to touch back with Minus the Alien and learn all about his new podcast, The Plat. And then we're going to learn about Earth Science with Michelle Davis. Now to kick this show off today, we're going to head down to the Kenmore Boulevard to learn all about the historical display put on by the Kenmore Historical Society. Let's go see what it's all about.
So I'm a fourth generation resident of Kenmore. My great-grandfather built one of the buildings on the boulevard. He ran a jewelry shop out of it for a little while. The building's still around. It's 940 Florida Avenue. Currently houses Dreams Academy. And eventually he bought the house next to where we live now. Family's been here a really long time, and everyone seems to know us. So I grew up here, went to Lawndale Elementary, just got a lot of pride for my family. I graduated from the University of Akron in 2018 with a degree in civil engineering. That degree could have taken me anywhere in the world, but when I sat down and thought about where I really wanted to be, I wanted to come back home to Kenmore because it felt like the neighborhood needed some younger leaders to step up and kind of help out. When I was growing up, we had a ton of families here that were very involved, and then just over the years they got older, and as they died off, some of the kids moved away. So we were really hurting for younger talent. So when I sat down and thought about it, I really thought that I could come back home and make a difference. So after college, I came back to Kenmore. I mean, not that I lived that far away, I lived down at Akron U, but come back to Kenmore after college. I just started getting involved with things around here. We had a lot of events on the boulevard, just different things going on in the community. And my family has always been involved since I was a kid, so the just helping out and stuff just felt natural to me anyway. So I slowly became involved with the Historical Society. When Jan was the president, she kind of let me know that I'm gonna be stepping away from the presidency just because of age and just kind of wanting to back off a little bit. So I kind of had a warning, but ultimately I kind of had to step up as president, or else the Historical Society probably wouldn't be around today. So I stepped up in 2022 and became president. So Better Kenmore CDC reached out to us a little over a year ago. The building that we're sitting in right now was originally the McCutcheon building. The McCutcheon was a big name in town. They had an HVAC. They ran HVAC stuff out of here. And before it was the McCutcheon building, it was Lowry, which Lowry is actually still around. They're over on Wilbeth now. So they reached out to us. They say, hey, we're going to be reopening this building. We want to make a connection with the community, and we want the community to feel welcome here. We'd like to work with you guys to have a display in the front of the building. My response to that was, that's awesome, but we are a volunteer organization. We are strictly run on volunteers. We don't have a lot of funds. I don't know if we can make this happen with the funding that we have right now. So Better Kenmore came back to me and said there's a grant application available from the state of Ohio, the Ohio History Fund. They said, we think we can make a pretty good case to get the grant. So I said, well, if I'm in. If you guys can get it, I'm in. So we applied for it together, and a big shout out to Better Kenmore because they did a lot of the work with the grant application. We worked on it together, we put the grant in, and lo and behold, we got it. So the grant was to have a rotating display in the front of the Better Kenmore CDC building. So we plan on rotating the display every 3 to 4 months. So it's a way for the community to come in and, take a look and see some of our history. We have a lot of items, but because we do not have a physical location, we don't get the opportunity to share them that much with the community. So we were really excited to have the opportunity to be able to share what we have with the community. Some of my goals for the Kenmore Historical Society, I'd like to start small. First of all, our website is really dated. Like if you look at the website, it screams 2003, which there's nothing wrong with that, but I do want to modernize it a little bit. Hopefully I can find a way to get people to pay for memberships online so they don't have to keep handing us checks every time they see us. That sounds like something real simple, but we are a volunteer-only organization. You know, I have a main job I work. A lot of people that involve us work other jobs. Some people are retired, which is nice, but it really, you know, it's just volunteer time. And a long-term goal for us, we'd like to find a permanent home. We've had a lot of interest from people. There's an old one-room schoolhouse on Wilbeth Road. Every time I talk to people, they always seem to mention that. So we went ahead and filed an application with the Summit County Land Bank. The property was formerly a church, and the church ceased operations in 2014. So they're working on getting the property. I guess it's kind of hard because the owner of the property doesn't exist anymore, so I'm sure there's a bunch of stuff they kind of have to do to get that. But we are working with them. Hopefully we can get the building. And once we get the building, we're gonna need a lot of help because it's probably gonna be 150 plus to rehab the building to where it can be occupied. And I don't want any donations for it right now because we do not own the property. But if we do get the property, we're probably gonna be kicking off a huge donation drive, which is a lot for a volunteer-only organization.
Podcasting is a hot thing, so we're going to head over to the Really Goody Studios and learn all about podcasting.
So I would say a podcast is really like a digital, like a radio show, right? So, you know, still to this day, you can turn on the radio and hear people having a conversation, right? Talk radio. I would say podcasting is just, you know, where, like I said, you can actually film yourself or record yourself at home or whatever and upload it to a streaming platform, and it's put out there digitally for people to download via what's called an RSS feed or the actual video, you know, podcast platforms. And that's all it is. It's just not over the radio waves. It's on the internet. It's online. So that's my definition of a podcast. I used to sing, okay? So I used to be a singer and I was entertaining in that way. And then I got married and you know, had a kid, so I couldn't be out there, you know, entertaining in that way. I probably could, but I just, you know, it's time to settle down, you know, from that. And I was working at a technology company. I was doing surface mount technology, doing like soldering and stuff like that. So we were allowed to listen to, you know, audiobooks or have on headphones while we were doing our work. And I started, that's where I discovered podcasting, right? I started listening to a guy by the name of Leo Laporte. He had a show called This Week in Tech. It was called TWIT, This Week in Tech. And he had a whole bunch of shows actually throughout his network. But I started listening to Leo Laporte and a show called Buzz Out Loud, a lot of, you know, technology shows. So that's what got me into listening to podcasting. And then from there, I'm like, hey, I still want to be able to use my voice in a way, still be able to entertain. So I switched over from singing to podcasting.
What's up, people? Welcome to the What's Really Good Show live pre-show. I'm Ramon Jamal.
I'm A-.
We just hanging out.
Back when I started podcasting, the funny part is this chair I'm sitting in was one of the chairs that I used, you know, when I started my first podcast. I had what was called a flip cam, okay? We did have, you know, cell phones, but the cameras and, you know, video technology on cell phones wasn't up to par to be able to do something like that. So they still were putting out, you know, little pocket-sized cameras, and there was a camera called a flip cam. And, you know, I just put that up on a tripod stand, and I had a little TV tray that I set my computer up on. And it was actually me and Amir Williamson, AKA Minus the Alien, who were doing this podcast. But yeah, we just had the flip cam and, you know, a laptop on a TV tray. We didn't know anything about getting good audio and whatnot because that's, you know, we just got the audio off of there. But we just, you know, used what we had. It's a saying that I like: start where you are, use what you have, and do what you can. And that's what we did. So that's how we got going with our podcast. And also, I want to give a big shout out to my mother because the first podcast that me and Amir were doing was called the What's Really Good Show, right? And we would, you know, talk about, you know, what's really good and what's not. So we would watch videos and, you know, speak about, you know, what was good about it or what wasn't, what we didn't like. and whatnot. But it's called the What's Really Good Show. And my mother said, the What's Really Good Show coming to you live from Really Goody Studios. So that's where this name came from. It's my mother. So thanks, Mom. Here at Really Goody Studios, we offer videography, podcasting, and photography, specifically headshot photography. So for business professionals, for models, creatives, if you need a headshot, we can take care of that here for you. Content creation, right? So if you want to do a short commercial, if you want to even come in and use, our cameras and our lighting to just sit and, create content, right? So you can just come in and sit and create content and have that so you can chop that up and do what you want with it later. We also offer editing services as well, right? Especially like through the podcasting. So you can come in, we can shoot the podcast for you. You can just get the raw files, or we can shoot it and edit it, right? So there's different price points when it comes to that. But, we do all of it. Videography, talking head corporate videos. We do that as well. So we can come to you, you can come to us. We can set up and do, talking head style videos, infomercials, just everything to get your brand out there, to get your message out there. Whatever you're trying to accomplish to get attention on whatever it is that you're doing, we can do that for you. My grandmother actually helped me to get into videography, and I never thought about it, but she bought a camcorder from QVC, right? And this was in the mid to late 80s. And when she got it, she gave it to me to learn how to use and everything. And it's just wild to me that I'm in this space now, that I'm doing this stuff. And I never thought about, like, how did I get into this? And lo and behold, I had to think back. It's my grandmother. She's the one who got me into the video side of things. So thank you. And I mean, she's passed years, but I appreciate the fact that she did that for me. So wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for Grandma.
Minus the Alien was on the show 9 years ago, and now we're back to see what he's doing and learn about his new podcast, The Plat. Let's go see what Minus the Alien is all about.
I think the artist has been empowered now through social media. Like you say, you don't have to rely on the record labels to get you out there, in a sense, to have you go viral. And you can do that all with your power of your phone. You know what I mean? So it's I would say it's a super saturated market of music, and that's not a bad thing if you're using creativity. And that's another thing that kind of, I ain't gonna say it bothers me, but to each his own. I choose to go a route where you like really kind of get creative with your concepts of music videos or the type of production you're trying to use for your music. And you hear a lot of artists that sound the same basically nowadays. So, when I was coming up, what was kind of like put into our brains was to be unique, have originality. Those are some of the things we stand on, and it's okay to be yourself and stick out, So I think it opens up a door for artists such as that to actually get some exposure, because a lot of the record companies would focus more on artists that were more into being gangsters and stuff like that. So music-wise, still doing the positive hip hop, the conscious hip hop. Got a project out right now called I Come in Peace. It's available on all digital platforms. It's a 7-song EP. Basically, the I Come in Peace concept is just basically that, like me coming with like messages that have more of a positive context to it. With hip hop culture, there's a lot of negative things going on as far as like how it's being promoted. And it's not a monolith. Like hip hop has so many different aspects to it. Like right now the music is it's really negative, you know what I'm saying? We've got messages of, you know, just all this twerking and you know, just it's almost like it's promoting prostitution in a sense. Then you got a side where it's the violence, you know, people are actually committing crimes, going on camera, telling on themselves, getting incriminated for that, getting killed, you know. So my thing is, there's a problem with programming. So, you know, that's what I try to do, like through my music. I try to be very conscious of what I put out there into the atmosphere. So when it comes to like music topics, I try to talk about more things that are uplifting or healing, you know, for your conscious mind and your soul, things of that nature.
Let us in! It's the Platt!
It's just like, I want to say like as of recently, maybe like even over this past summer is when I was like, you know what? I really think I got a natural gift to be able to do something where I'm able to, you know, cover different topics. Like with the Platt podcast, let's talk about why I called it the Platt. So the Platt is basically short for the platform. And then what we do with the Platt podcast is we shed a positive light on the culture through an eclectic lens. One of my overall common goals is to basically get the younger generation and the older generation to come together instead of us hating on each other. You know, you get a lot of kids in this newer generations who view, like, if you're over a certain age, like you still can't like do music, and no other genres do that. So we kind of want to teach them, like, you don't have to bash like the elders, kind of show respect to the elders. And then at the same time, like a lot of the elders that hate on the young kids because they're doing something that they're not used to, you know what I mean? It's unique to these kids in their own way, but then like the older generations that hate on them. So it's just like, how can we find common ground? Because we're all in a culture that we all love, you know? So that's really what the Platt is about, bringing that unity, bringing that passion for hip hop culture to the forefront. And at the same time, having a platform where we can promote our brands, you know what I mean? Our music, anything we got going on, books, you know, writing scripts, whatever it is you're into. And the Platt is also for the community as far as when it comes to like local artists showcasing their talents. We do vinyl reviews where we basically, we take you back. We're trying to teach the youth, like, hey, this is how we used to do it. And it was fun to have tangible things like vinyl. You know, I don't know if you can see it in the shot or not, but back here we got The Low End Theory by Tribe Called Quest, who just recently got inducted to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So congrats and shout outs to them, because those were some pioneers, and they're the ones who influenced me, you know what I mean? So maybe because they were a little older doesn't mean I'm gonna hate on them, you know what I mean? To tie it all together, but yeah, the Platt is where it's at. Shout out DJ Dramatize, shout out Insight. I definitely want to shout out like the community of Akron, Ohio, just for embracing me for one. You know, like I said, I'm a guy of the community. We're talking after school programs, we're talking talent shows for youth, things of that nature. Just volunteering your time, showing these kids that you care, because a lot of them grow up without, you know, father figures or mother figures or you know, I feel like I'm a big brother in a sense to the community. Yeah. So I just want to help people heal from their trauma in whatever way that I see that I see fit, which is through music and through this podcast show, The Platt.
I'm just being optimistic, cause you're my starlight. Baby, I'm a starlight.
Now, to wrap this show up today, I'm going to meet up with someone who is extremely passionate about the planet Earth. Let's go learn all about Earth science and see what Michelle Davis is all about.
I think a lot of it because I had a metro park to grow up in. Like, I had an Akron metro park as a playground, as a nice, safe, you know, as a 10, 11, 12-year-old kid. You had this beautiful place to go and explore and feel like you were exploring like big lands far away. It was a really, really important part. And I was fortunate enough to grow up in a kind of neighborhood that fostered that independence, I think observation. Like, I questioned a lot of the things that I was told really early on. I say that we are going to, more often than not in these times, we need more people to love the place that you are, love the things we're provided, our shade, our trees, our water, and know that earth science and geology, geological materials, none of this would be possible without geology. None of this would be possible without us understanding the properties of minerals. We are earth, we are geology. We share such a similar makeup with the earth's crust. It's fascinating. And so remember that you are of the earth. You know, we all are. And I want the next generation to have clean air. I want you to have access to clean water. I want you to understand Earth's processes so that when you buy a plot of land, you can look at it and be like, what is the risk to build in this floodplain, in this river valley? There are so many ways that having a good understanding of Earth science can benefit you. I bet you, I always challenge my students at the beginning of the semester, no matter what you're interested in, I can make Earth science fit. I have a hard time with accounting, but you know, there are different fields. If you absolutely love a particular type of caterpillar, you can start off in earth science and spend your whole life studying, researching, and getting to know the life cycle of that caterpillar, and then become the best in the field at it. There's so much possibility, and our plastic situation is getting worse. The microplastics in our water, really, we need to make headway in engineering so that we can remove plastics and pharmaceuticals from our water systems. And that, a good understanding of earth science. I've had students that took all the classes I teach, went through her degree, and now she's doing marine biology in Scripps Institute of Oceanography. And I'm really proud of her. So you can do it all. You can apply for a semester at sea on a research ship. I partner with NASA and the Ohio Space Grant Consortium, and they always have monies and possibilities available for you to research something that, makes you excited. Do you want to terraform the moon? They're doing that right now. Meaning, you know, there are scientists looking in on how to terraform the moon. But yeah, there's so many possibilities. Pick one. My assessment is that people are leaving teaching in record numbers right now. As of the filming of this, I would say that there is an exodus happening because I can't figure out exactly what it is, but something is breaking down. And I think if we're driven to create profit from education, I don't think it's going to work very well and not stand the test of time. So I think there's a lot of things that are happening on different levels. That it's a threat. It is a threat, particularly to academic freedoms. It's, again, you know, I talked about literally coexisting. Like, I can coexist in a place that also, you know, has religious studies. We can coexist with earth science. We can coexist with landscape technology. You know, we can coexist. We're all here. We're all in it together. That's why I tell my students all the time, is we're in this together right now. We are all the same, you and me. And when we look at us on this huge earth, we're so tiny and such a little speck, tiny speck. We're such a small part. but we're exerting a big influence. We're a very tiny speck in the time of, deep time. We're like a moment. But we are changing things here so quickly. And I feel like we're not doing it right. We're not doing it right. This is why there's things dying, why we have needless suffering and a lot of illnesses. I think comes just a better relationship and understanding of the earth. That's my wish for humankind.
Thank you once again for watching this episode of Around Akron with Blue Green. Now, if you have any questions or comments, you can catch me on social media. Thank you, and have an amazing day. Next up, I'm going to meet up with someone who's extremely passionate about the earth. Let's go see what earth science about. ABC, 1, 2, 3. We're going to go check out a display. I'm going to go check out this. Let's go see what the. Bingo.